"Who the hell are you?" Lila slammed the telegram against his chest, her hand shaking. Not from fear, but rage. The message was addressed to Thorne, not Silas. The name he'd whispered at their wedding was a lie. Before he could answer, gunfire cracked through the morning air. Armed men surrounded the homestead, rifles raised, shouting for the railroad air. Silas grabbed her wrist, his eyes wild. "We run or we die. Choose." She looked at the stranger she'd married, the man who'd bought her for pocket change while sitting on a fortune, the man who'd just made her a target. Lila ripped her hand free and reached for the shotgun. "We fight." But to understand how Lila Hart ended up married to a liar with a price on his head, you need to know where it all began. Winter, 1847. Outside St. Louis. Lila was 9 years old when her parents died. The fever came fast, her mother first, then her father 3 days later. She remembered the sound of frozen earth being broken for their graves, the way the preacher's breath fogged in the cold air as he rushed through the service. No one cried. It was too cold for tears. Her aunt took her in first. Lasted 8 months before the woman's husband made it clear Lila was one mouth too many. Then came her cousin in Kansas City. 2 years of sleeping in a storage room and washing other people's laundry until he moved west without her. By 13, Lila had learned the truth. Love was a luxury. Family was a transaction. And she was always the cost. Uncle Wes picked her up from the Kansas City orphanage on a Tuesday. He smelled like tobacco and broken promises, but he smiled when he saw her. "You're the spitting image of your mama," he said. Lila wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe someone finally wanted her. She was wrong. Uncle Wes wasn't cruel, not in the way that left bruises. He was worse. He was careless. He gambled. Cards, horses, dice, anything with odds. He borrowed money from men with dead eyes and sharp smiles, men who collected debts the way butchers collected bones. And when the money ran out, he used Lila. "Just smile at Mr. Garrett when he comes by," Wes would say, straightening her collar. "Show him we're respectable folk." She was 14. By 15, she knew how to mend shirts by lamplight, stretch a pot of beans across 4 days, and disappear into the walls when Wes brought business associates home. By 16, she stopped dreaming about escape. By 17, she stopped dreaming altogether. The debt collectors came on a Thursday. Lila was scrubbing the floor when she heard boots on the porch, heavy, deliberate. Not the stumbling gait of Wes coming home drunk. These were the boots of men who didn't ask twice. "Wes Hart?" The voice was smooth as oil on water. That's me." Wes's voice cracked. "You owe Mr. Callahan $300, plus interest. That makes it $450 now." Silence. "I don't have it." "We know." Lila pressed herself against the wall, heart hammering. Through the gap in the door, she saw 3 men. The one in front wore a suit too nice for their neighborhood. The 2 behind him wore guns. "You've got 1 week, Wes. Sell something, beg, steal, we don't care." The man in the suit leaned closer. "But if you don't have our money, we'll take payment another way." His eyes slid past Wes, landed on Lila. She felt it like a hand around her throat. The man smiled. 1 week. If you're invested in Lila's story and want to see how she escapes this nightmare, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. Trust me, you won't see this twist coming. 6 days later, Wes told her to put on her best dress. "Where are we going?" Lila asked. "Town." He wouldn't meet her eyes. "Why?" "Just do as I say, girl." The dress was old, faded calico that had belonged to her mother. It still smelled faintly of lavender, a ghost of a life Lila barely remembered. She knew what was happening. She'd known since the men left. Uncle Wes was going to sell her. The saloon sat at the edge of town like a rotting tooth, all peeling paint and broken promises. Music and laughter spilled out into the prairie dusk, too loud, too bright. Wes gripped her elbow. "Stay close. Don't speak unless spoken to." "Uncle Wes," "I said don't speak." They walked around back where the noise faded and the shadows grew long. 3 men waited there. 2 she recognized, Callahan's collectors. The third was new. He stood apart from the others, hat brim pulled low, hands shoved in his pockets. Tall, lean, sun-cracked knuckles and dust on his boots. A working man. A poor man. Lila's stomach dropped. She'd expected a merchant, maybe. Someone with money. Someone who could at least pretend this was anything other than what it was. But this man looked as broke as they were. "This her?" the man in the suit asked. "Yes, sir. My niece Lila. Good girl, hard worker. Knows how to cook, clean, mend." "We're not hiring a maid, Wes." The man's smile was a knife. "Mr. Cole here is looking for a wife." The word hit Lila like a fist. Wife. The ranch hand, Cole, finally looked up. His eyes were gray, storm-colored. They swept over her once, quick and assessing, then returned to the ground. He didn't leer, didn't grin, didn't lick his lips the way the other men did when they thought she wasn't looking. He just looked tired. "She agreeable to this?" Cole's voice was low, rough from disuse. The man in the suit laughed. "Does it matter?" "It does to me." Silence dropped like a stone. Lila stared at the ranch hand. He still wasn't looking at her, but his jaw was tight, his shoulders squared. Waiting. "Girl," Wes hissed, "answer the man." What was she supposed to say? That she'd rather take her chances alone? She had no money, no skills beyond survival, no family who wanted her. She was 17 years old and worth $50. "I'm agreeable," Lila said. Her voice didn't shake. She was proud of that. Cole nodded once. "Then we have a deal." Money changed hands. Lila didn't watch. Couldn't. She kept her eyes on the horizon where the sun was bleeding out across the prairie, painting everything red. "Pleasure doing business, Wes." The man in the suit tipped his hat. "Cole, she's all yours." Uncle Wes finally looked at her. For just a second, something flickered in his eyes, regret, maybe. Shame. Then he turned and walked away. Lila watched him go, watched him disappear into the saloon, into the noise and the light, back to the cards and the whiskey and the life that had never had room for her. She didn't cry. There was nothing left to cry for. "You got belongings?" Cole asked. "No." "Family you need to say goodbye to?" "No." He nodded, like he'd expected that. "Then let's go." He led her to a horse tied behind the saloon, a mare so thin Lila could count her ribs. Cole swung up into the saddle, then offered his hand. Lila hesitated. This was it, the moment everything changed. Once she took his hand, she'd belong to him, legally, completely. "I won't hurt you," Cole said quietly. "That's a promise." She didn't believe him, but she took his hand anyway. What choice did she have? They rode in silence, the prairie stretching endlessly in every direction. The sky darkened. Stars began to prick through the twilight. Finally, a shape emerged from the gloom, a homestead, sagging and small, barely more than a shack. Cole reined in the horse. "Home," he said. Lila stared at the broken-down cabin, the leaning fence posts, the land that looked like it had given up. This was her life now. But as Cole dismounted and offered his hand again, Lila noticed something strange. The horse beneath her, the one that looked half-starved, had a brand on its flank. Not a ranch brand. A thoroughbred registry mark. This wasn't a poor man's horse. Who was Silas Cole? And what was a man with a thoroughbred doing pretending to be broke? They didn't wait for morning. Cole led her through the dark streets to a clapboard church that leaned like a drunk. A single lamp burned in the window. He knocked twice. The door opened. The preacher reeked of whiskey and stale tobacco. His collar was crooked, his eyes bloodshot. He looked Lila up and down, then at Cole. "She of age?" 17. "Close enough." The preacher waved them inside. $10. Cole paid without hesitation. The church was empty. Cold. The pews sat in shadows like witnesses who'd turned away. Lila stood beside a man whose name she barely knew, wearing her dead mother's dress, about to promise her life away. "Dearly beloved," the preacher began, his words slurring together. He didn't look at them, just read from a book so worn the pages were falling out. Lila didn't hear the words. She was somewhere else, back in St. Louis, watching her parents' coffins lowered into frozen ground. Back in Kansas City, sleeping on a storage room floor. Back in Uncle Wes's house, learning that love was just another word for leverage. "Do you take this woman?" the preacher asked. "I do." Cole's voice was steady. "And do you take this man?" Lila's throat closed. This was it, her last chance to run, to fight, to choose something different. But there was nothing different to choose. "I do," she whispered. "Then by the power vested in me, I pronounce you man and wife." The preacher closed his book. "That'll be $10. "Already paid you," Cole said. Right. The preacher scratched his neck. "Well then, congratulations." He didn't mean it. Cole turned to Lila. For a moment, she thought he might kiss her, seal the vows the way married people did. But he just nodded once, like they'd completed a business transaction, which, she supposed, they had. Outside, Uncle Wes was waiting. Cole handed him an envelope. Wes took it, finally meeting Lila's eyes. "You'll be all right," he said. "Cole's a good man. You don't know that. I know enough." Wes pocketed the money. "Take care of yourself, girl." Then he walked away. Again, for the last time. Lila watched him disappear into the darkness. She was married now, belonged to someone else, and Uncle Wes had $50 in his pocket. "Ready?" Cole asked. "Does it matter?" He didn't answer, just led her back to the half-starved mare. They rode through the night. The prairie stretched endlessly in every direction, flat, dark, empty. The only sound was the horse's hooves and the wind cutting across the grass. Cole didn't speak, didn't explain where they were going or what would happen when they got there. Just rode, his body tense, his eyes scanning the horizon like he expected trouble. Lila held onto his waist because she had to, because falling meant dying out here. But she didn't lean into him, didn't trust him. She'd learned better than that. Dawn broke slowly, painting the sky in shades of blood and ash. And finally, she saw it. The homestead. It sat alone in a valley, surrounded by nothing. The house was small, 2 rooms at most, with a roof that sagged in the middle and walls that hadn't seen paint in years. The barn was worse, half collapsed, its door hanging by a single hinge. The land around it was thin and tired. Fence posts leaned at angles. The well looked like it might cave in. Even the grass seemed to be giving up. This was her new home. Cole reined in the horse. "It's not much." That was an understatement. "But it's ours," he added quietly. "No one can take it from us." Lila slid off the horse. Her legs were numb from riding. Her dress was covered in dust. She looked at the broken-down cabin, the failing land, the life she'd just been sold into. "Welcome home," Cole said. It didn't feel like a welcome. It felt like a sentence. The first week was exactly what Lila expected. She woke before dawn to haul water from the well, bucket after bucket, her shoulders screaming. The pump was rusted, the handle stiff. It took 20 minutes just to fill 1 pail. The house was drafty. Wind came through, gaps in the walls. The stove barely worked, coughing smoke whenever she tried to light it. The floor was dirt, packed hard but still dusty. She scrubbed it anyway, swept it, tried to make it clean. Cole worked outside from sunup to sundown, fixing fences, clearing rocks from the field, chopping wood. He moved like a man who'd done hard labor his whole life, efficient, tireless, silent. He didn't talk much, didn't ask her questions, didn't touch her. At night, he slept on the floor near the stove. Gave her the only bed, a thin mattress on a wooden frame that creaked with every breath. "You don't have to do that," Lila said the first night. "I know." "Then why?" "Because I said I wouldn't hurt you." He rolled onto his side, facing away. "And I meant it." Lila didn't know what to do with that, didn't know if she believed him. So she lay in the dark, listening to him breathe, waiting for him to change his mind. He never did. The days blurred together, hauling water, scrubbing floors, patching clothes that were more whole than fabric, cooking beans and cornmeal because that's all they had. The soil was bad. Cole planted anyway, working the field with a determination that bordered on desperate. But Lila could see the truth. Nothing good would grow here. The land had given up long before they arrived. Still, Cole worked, every day, every hour of light. And Lila worked beside him when she could, hauling water to the field, pulling weeds, trying to coax life from dirt that didn't want to give it. They didn't talk. There was nothing to say. This was survival, nothing more. One afternoon, Lila was mending Cole's shirt when she noticed his hands. They were rough, calloused, sun-cracked, the hands of a working man. But his nails were clean, too clean for someone who spent all day in the dirt. And when he moved, there was something in the way he carried himself. Not arrogance, exactly, but confidence. The kind that came from never having to worry about where your next meal would come from. It didn't make sense. "Where'd you come from?" Lila asked suddenly. Cole looked up from the fence post he was repairing. "What? Before here, where were you?" He was quiet for a long moment. "Around." "That's not an answer. It's the only one I've got." He went back to work. Lila watched him, the way he moved, the way he spoke, the way he seemed to be hiding something just beneath the surface. But she didn't push. What did it matter? They were married, stuck together. His past didn't change that. So she went back to mending his shirt, and Cole went back to fixing the fence, and the sun beat down on both of them like a punishment. That night, Lila lay in bed staring at the ceiling. The house creaked in the wind. Cole's breathing was steady near the stove. This was her life now. This broken-down cabin, this failing land, this silent man who'd bought her for $50. She'd accepted it, had to accept it, because what other choice did she have? But as she closed her eyes, she thought about the thoroughbred brand on the horse, the clean nails, the way Cole moved like someone who'd once had everything. And she wondered, just for a moment, who Silas Cole really was. 3 weeks into the marriage, Lila cut her finger on a broken plate. It wasn't deep, just a nick. She wrapped it in a rag and kept working. But the next morning she woke with a fever. The cut had turned angry, red, swollen, hot to the touch. Infection. Out here that could mean losing the finger. Or worse. Cole took one look and disappeared into the barn. Lila sat at the table, dizzy, watching the door. Maybe he'd gone for the doctor. But the nearest town was hours away, and they had no money for doctors anyway. When Cole returned, he was carrying a small wooden box. He set it on the table and opened it. Inside were bottles, glass sealed with wax, labels in a language Lila didn't recognize. French, maybe. Cole selected one, broke the seal, and poured amber liquid onto a clean cloth. The smell hit her immediately. Sharp, medicinal, expensive. "What is that?" Lila asked. "Antiseptic." He took her hand, his touch surprisingly gentle. "This'll hurt." It did. The liquid burned like fire. Lila bit down on her lip to keep from crying out. Cole worked quickly, cleaning the wound with practiced efficiency. Then he pulled out bandages. Not rags, not torn fabric, but actual medical bandages. Fine linen, soft, the kind doctors used. He wrapped her finger carefully, his movements precise. "Where did you get this?" Lila asked. Cole didn't look up. "Had it." "From where?" "Does it matter?" "Yes." He finished tying off the bandage and sat back. For a moment, he just looked at her hand, then at her face. "I used to know people," he said finally. "People with money. They gave me things." "What kind of people?" "The kind I don't talk to anymore." He closed the box and stood. "Keep that dry. Change the bandage tomorrow." He walked out before she could ask anything else. Lila stared at the box on the table, at the French labels, the wax seals, the fine linen bandages. This wasn't something you got from people with money. This was something you bought, something expensive, something a poor ranch hand shouldn't have. The infection cleared in 2 days. By the end of the week, Lila's finger was healed, but her suspicion wasn't. She started noticing things, small things, things that didn't fit. The coffee, for instance. One morning, Cole made a pot that smelled like heaven, rich, dark, complex. Nothing like the bitter chicory blend they'd been drinking. "Where'd this come from?" Lila asked. "Town." "We haven't been to town." Cole poured himself a cup. "Went yesterday. Early." "With what money?" "Had some saved." But they didn't have money. Lila knew exactly how much they had. $3.40. She'd counted it. And this coffee cost at least $1 a pound. Cole drank his coffee in silence, then went outside to work. Lila stood at the window, watching him. He moved across the yard with that same quiet confidence, that same strange grace. Who was he? The horse was the biggest clue. Lila had noticed the brand that first night, but she'd been too exhausted, too overwhelmed to think about it. Now she couldn't stop thinking about it. She waited until Cole was in the far field, then walked to the corral. The mare, the one that looked half-starved, was grazing. But in the barn, hidden in the back stall, was another horse. A stallion, tall, proud, with a coat like polished mahogany. His eyes were intelligent, alert. His build was perfect, strong shoulders, clean legs, the kind of conformation that cost serious money. Lila approached slowly. The horse watched her but didn't spook. She ran her hand along his neck. His coat was soft, well-groomed despite the dust. And there, on his flank, was the brand. Not a ranch mark, a registry seal, the kind that marked thoroughbreds, racing stock, horses worth hundreds, maybe thousands, of dollars. "His name's Apollo." Lila spun around. Cole stood in the barn doorway, silhouetted against the light. "You shouldn't be back here," he said. "Why not? I live here too." Cole stepped inside. The stallion nickered softly, and Cole reached out to stroke his nose. The horse leaned into his touch like an old friend. "Where'd you get him?" Lila asked. "He's mine." "That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting." Cole's voice was firm but not angry. Just final. Lila crossed her arms. "That horse is worth more than this entire homestead. More than everything we own combined." "I know. So why are we living like this? Why are we breaking our backs on land that won't grow anything when you could sell that horse and—" "I'm not selling him." The words came out sharp, hard. The first time Cole had raised his voice since they'd met. Lila stared at him. "Why not?" Cole's jaw tightened. For a moment, she thought he might actually tell her, might explain, but then he turned away. "Because he's not for sale," Cole said quietly. "None of this is for sale." He walked out, leaving Lila alone with the thoroughbred and 100 unanswered questions. That night, Lila couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, listening to Cole breathe near the stove, thinking about everything that didn't add up. The French medicine, the expensive coffee, the thoroughbred stallion, the way Cole moved like someone who'd been educated, the way he spoke, rough around the edges, but underneath, there was something refined, controlled. The way his hands were calloused but his nails were always clean. The way he'd paid $50 for a wife without hesitation, like it was nothing. $50 was a fortune to most men, but Cole had handed it over like pocket change. Who was Silas Cole? And why was he pretending to be poor? Lila rolled over, staring at his silhouette in the darkness. He was lying on his back, one arm behind his head, staring at the ceiling. "Can't sleep?" he asked, without looking at her. "No, me neither." Silence stretched between them. Outside, the wind rattled the windows. "Why'd you marry me?" Lila asked suddenly. Cole was quiet for a long time. "Needed a wife." "That's not a reason." "It's reason enough." "No, it's not." Lila sat up. You could have married anyone. Someone from town. Someone who knew you. Someone who wanted something from me, Cole finished. He turned his head, looking at her in the darkness. That's why I married you, Lila. Because you didn't want anything. You just wanted to survive. And that was enough for you? It was honest. He looked back at the ceiling. That's more than most people can say. Lila didn't know what to say to that. Didn't know if it was a compliment or an insult or just the truth. Go to sleep, Cole said quietly. Tomorrow's another long day. But Lila didn't sleep. She lay awake, thinking about honesty and secrets and the man who'd bought her for $50 while hiding a fortune in his barn. And she wondered how long it would be before everything fell apart. Lila woke to a sound she couldn't place. Tap, 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 rhythmic, deliberate, coming from outside. She sat up slowly, careful not to make noise. The bed was empty. Cole's blankets near the stove were folded, unused. Moonlight streamed through the window. Lila crept to it and looked out. Cole sat on the porch, hunched over something small. His hand moved in quick, precise motions. And with each movement came that sound. Tap, 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 tap. A telegraph key. Lila's breath caught. She'd seen them in town. Operators sending messages across the wires, connecting cities, businesses, families. But out here, in the middle of nowhere, they didn't even have telegraph lines. Cole worked for another 10 minutes, his fingers flying across the key with the ease of long practice. Then he stopped, packed the device into a leather case, and stood. Lila ducked away from the window and dove back into bed. The door opened quietly. Cole's footsteps crossed the room. He lay down near the stove, and within minutes, his breathing evened out. But Lila stayed awake, staring at the ceiling. Who was he sending messages to? And how? The next night, she stayed awake on purpose. Sure enough, around midnight, Cole rose silently and slipped outside. Lila waited 5 minutes, then followed. She cracked the door open just enough to see. Cole sat in the same spot, the telegraph key on his lap. But this time, she could see more. A wire ran from the device across the yard, disappearing into the darkness. He'd strung his own line, connected it to something, maybe the main telegraph route miles away. She didn't know how, but he'd done it. Cole's fingers moved rapidly, tapping out a message in code. Dots and dashes, a language Lila didn't understand. Then he stopped, waited. A minute later, the key clicked on its own. Someone was responding. Cole listened, his face tense in the moonlight. When the message ended, he tapped out a reply. Short, curt. Then he packed up and came back inside. Lila was in bed before he opened the door, her eyes closed, her breathing steady. But her mind was racing. Who was he talking to? What was he saying? And why was he doing it in secret? The riders came 3 days later. Lila was hanging laundry when she saw them, 2 men on horseback, moving slowly along the ridge about a mile out. They weren't coming closer, just watching. She shaded her eyes, trying to make out details. Both wore dark suits, city clothes. One had a rifle across his saddle. They stayed for maybe 10 minutes, then turned and rode away. Lila's hands shook as she pinned up the last shirt. When Cole came in for lunch, she told him. There were men on the ridge, watching the house. Cole's expression didn't change. What did they look like? City men, suits. One had a rifle. They come down here? No, just watched. Cole nodded slowly, like this was exactly what he'd expected. Stay inside after dark. Don't go out alone. Who were they? No one you need to worry about. Silas? I said don't worry about it. His voice was sharp, final. He left without eating. Lila stood at the window, watching him walk to the barn, watching him check the perimeter, watching him move like a man who knew he was being hunted. The riders came back twice more that week, always at a distance, always watching. And every night, Cole sent his messages. Lila couldn't take it anymore. On the 8th night, when Cole went outside, she followed him. Didn't hide this time, just walked right up to the porch. Cole looked up, startled. His hand froze over the telegraph key. "Who are you talking to?" Lila demanded. "Go back inside." "No, I want answers. I want to know who you are, why those men are watching us, why you're sending secret messages in the middle of the night." "Lila? Is Silas even your real name?" Silence. Cole stared at her, his face unreadable in the moonlight. Then, slowly, he set down the telegraph key. "No," he said quietly. "It's not." The words hit her like a physical blow. "Then what is?" Cole stood, running a hand through his hair. He looked tired, older than his years. "It's better if you don't know." "Better for who?" "For you. I'm your wife." Lila's voice cracked. "I have a right to know who I married." "You married a man who's trying to keep you safe." Cole stepped closer. "That's all you need to know." "That's not enough." "It has to be." Lila shook her head, backing away. "Those men on the ridge, they're looking for you, aren't they? That's why you're hiding out here. That's why you're pretending to be poor." Cole didn't answer, didn't deny it. "Who are you running from?" Lila whispered. "Everyone." The word came out raw, honest. "I'm running from everyone." He picked up the telegraph key and walked past her into the house. Lila stood alone on the porch, her heart pounding, her mind spinning. Her husband was a liar, a fugitive, a man with secrets that could get them both killed. And she had no idea what to do about it. The next morning, Lila was cleaning out the barn when she found it. A trunk, hidden under loose floorboards in the back stall, covered with hay and dust. She shouldn't have opened it. Knew she shouldn't. But her hands moved anyway, lifting the lid. Inside were clothes, fine clothes. A tailored suit in charcoal gray, a silk vest, shirts with mother-of-pearl buttons, a pocket watch made of gold. And underneath, papers, documents, letters. Lila picked up the first one. It was addressed to Mr. Thorne. Not Cole, Thorne. She unfolded it with shaking hands. "Dear Mr. Thorne, your father insists you return immediately. The board meeting cannot proceed without you. The railroad expansion into the Western Territories requires your signature. Please respond at your earliest convenience. J. Whitmore, Thorne Industries." Lila's vision blurred. She grabbed another letter. "Silas, stop this foolishness and come home. You have responsibilities, a legacy. You cannot simply abandon everything because of your idealistic notions. The family needs you." Father. Another. "Mr. Thorne, your accounts remain active. Current balance, $847,000. Please advise on investment strategy. First National Bank of New York." $847,000. Lila dropped the letter like it had burned her. She dug deeper. Found a photograph. A family portrait. A stern older man in an expensive suit. A cold-looking woman dripping in jewels. And between them, a younger man. Clean-shaven, well-dressed. But the eyes were the same. Storm gray, tired. No, not Silas. Thorne. Her husband was Silas Thorne, heir to a railroad empire, a man worth nearly $1 million. And he'd bought her for $50. Lila sat back on her heels, the photograph trembling in her hands. He'd lied about everything. His name, his past, his poverty. He'd married her, a nobody, an orphan, a girl worth nothing, while sitting on a fortune that could buy entire towns. Why? The question burned in her chest. Why would someone with everything choose nothing? Why would he hide out here, breaking his back on failing land, living in a shack, pretending to be poor? What was he running from? Or who? Footsteps sounded outside the barn. Lila shoved everything back into the trunk, slammed the lid, and covered it with hay. She was standing by Apollo's stall when Cole walked in. He looked at her, at the disturbed hay, at her face. He knew. "You found it," he said quietly. Lila's hands clenched into fists. "Thorne!" He flinched like she'd struck him. "That's your real name. Silas Thorne, railroad heir, millionaire." Her voice shook with fury. "You lied to me." "I never lied." "You said your name was Cole." "I said people call me Cole, and they do, out here." He stepped closer. Silas Thorne doesn't exist anymore. I left him behind. You can't just leave behind $1 million. Watch me. Lila stared at him, at this stranger she'd married. This man who'd bought her like cattle while hiding a fortune. Why? She whispered. Why would you give all that up? Cole, Thorne, whoever he was, looked away. Because that life was killing me. The expectations, the greed. The people who only saw dollar signs when they looked at me. He met her eyes again. I wanted to know if anyone could see me. Just me. Without the money. So you came out here and played poor. I came out here to be free. And me? Lila's voice cracked. What was I? Some kind of test? A way to prove you could find someone who didn't want your money? No, you were... He stopped. Swallowed hard. You were real. You didn't want anything from me because you didn't know there was anything to want. You just wanted to survive, and I thought, maybe we could survive together. Lila shook her head, backing toward the door. Those men on the ridge. They're from your family, aren't they? They're looking for you. Yes. And when they find you? When they find us? Cole's jaw tightened. I won't let them take me back. You might not have a choice. She turned and walked out, leaving him alone in the barn with his secrets and his lies. That night, Lila lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. Her husband was a millionaire pretending to be a pauper, a man running from a family that wanted to drag him back to a life he'd abandoned. A man who'd married her not because he needed a wife, but because he needed someone who didn't know who he was. And now, men were watching them, waiting. The fortune was following him like a shadow, and sooner or later, it would catch up. The question wasn't if, it was when, and what would happen to her when it did.